There are secrets that people keep not because they want to, but because revealing them would put lives at risk. Identities that are carefully constructed over decades to protect not just yourself, but everyone you love. Truths that start with survival and end with the terrifying realization that the past you thought you had escaped has finally found you. When 42-year-old Lisa Williams walked onto the Family Feud stage in March 2026 with her husband of 15 years and their two teenage children, she was carrying the weight of a lie she had been living for 20 years. A lie that began with fleeing domestic violence under cover of darkness and ended with a completely new identity. A lie that her husband and children knew nothing about because she had convinced herself that starting over meant erasing who she used to be. And when she chose to confess the truth on national television, when she revealed that her name was not actually Lisa Williams, but Sarah Morrison, that she had fled an abusive first marriage 22 years ago and had been living under a false identity ever since, Steve Harvey would pause the show immediately before making a decision that this woman needed protection not just from her past, but from the consequences of finally telling the truth. What happened next would prove that sometimes the lies we tell to survive become the truths we live by, and that revealing who you really are after 2 decades of hiding can be both liberation and devastation. Before we dive into this story of escape, reinvention, and the moment a woman chose honesty over safety, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Because what you are about to witness will remind you that domestic violence survivors do not always escape cleanly, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit that the life you built was founded on a necessary deception. The Family Feud studio that March afternoon was filled with the usual pre-show energy of families preparing to compete. On one side stood the Rodriguez family from Chicago, laughing and energetic. On the other side stood the Williams family from Portland, Oregon, which included Lisa Williams, 42, her husband David, 45, and their two children, Nathan, 16, and Maya, 14. Lisa Williams stood with her family, but there was something tense about her posture, a hypervigilance that suggested she was constantly aware of her surroundings, constantly scanning for threats that others could not see. She was attractive in a carefully neutral way, with hair colored a shade different from what it naturally was, and makeup applied with the precision of someone who had learned to alter her appearance subtly but consistently. David stood beside her with obvious love and devotion, completely unaware that the woman he had been married to for 15 years was not entirely who she claimed to be. Steve Harvey worked the stage with his usual warmth, greeting both families, making jokes, establishing rapport. When he reached the Williams family, he smiled broadly. "Lisa and David Williams from Portland, 15 years of marriage, 2 great kids, tell me about your family." David answered enthusiastically. "We are blessed, Steve. Lisa is an incredible wife and mother, the kids are doing great, we have a good life, we could not be happier." Steve turned to Lisa. "And what about you, Lisa? Tell me about yourself." Lisa's voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, a tremor that suggested she was working very hard to maintain composure. "I am a high school guidance counselor. I work with teenagers who are going through difficult situations. I try to help them navigate challenges and make good choices." Steve nodded. "That sounds like important work. What made you choose that profession?" Lisa's answer was immediate and carefully prepared. "I believe that everyone deserves a second chance. That your past does not have to define your future, that you can start over and build a good life no matter what you have been through." The way she said it carried weight, layers of meaning that Steve picked up on immediately. He looked at her more closely. "That sounds like it comes from personal experience." Lisa took a deep breath. "Steve, before we start this game, there is something I need to say. Something I need to confess publicly because I do not know how else to do it." David's expression shifted from happy to concerned. "Lisa, what are you talking about?" Steve Harvey set his cards down immediately. "Lisa, what is going on?" Lisa looked at her husband, at her children who were watching her with growing confusion, at the cameras that would broadcast whatever she was about to say to millions of people. "My name is not Lisa Williams. I am not who you think I am. I have been lying to all of you for 15 years. The studio went silent. David stepped back slightly as if he had been pushed. "What do you mean your name is not Lisa Williams? That is your name. We have been married for 15 years. "No," Lisa said, and her voice was shaking now. "My name is Sarah Morrison. I changed it legally 20 years ago. I changed everything about who I was. My name, my social security number, my entire identity. And I never told you because I was trying to protect you. I was trying to protect all of you from the person I used to be and the life I escaped from. Steve Harvey walked closer, his expression serious. Lisa or Sarah, what are you saying? Why did you change your identity? Lisa wiped tears from her eyes. 22 years ago, when I was 20, I got married to a man named Marcus Morrison. He seemed wonderful at first. Charming, attentive, loving. But 6 months after we got married, he started hitting me. And it got worse. For 2 years, I lived with constant violence. He would beat me for any reason or no reason. He would lock me in rooms. He would control everything I did, where I went, who I talked to. I was completely isolated. She paused, struggling to continue. I tried to leave 3 times. The first time, he found me at my mother's house and dragged me back. The second time, I made it to a shelter, and he showed up with flowers and apologies, and I believed him and went back. The third time, I left and he found me again, and he beat me so badly I ended up in the hospital with a fractured skull and broken ribs. And the doctors told me that if I went back to him again, he would kill me. David was staring at his wife with an expression of shock and horror. Nathan and Maya were crying. Steve Harvey's face showed profound compassion mixed with concern. So what did you do? Steve asked gently. I disappeared. A domestic violence organization helped me. They connected me with a program that helps survivors escape. They gave me a new identity. They helped me get a new social security number, new driver's license, new birth certificate. They moved me across the country. They taught me how to leave no trace, how to never contact anyone from my old life, how to become someone new. And I became Lisa Williams. I moved to Portland. I started over completely. She looked at David with desperation in her eyes. 2 years after I moved to Portland, I met you, and I fell in love with you, and I wanted to tell you the truth. I wanted to tell you that I was not really Lisa Williams, that I had fled domestic violence, that I was living under a false identity. But I was terrified that if I told you, you would leave. Or worse, that somehow the information would get back to Marcus and he would find me. So I stayed silent. I married you under a false name. I had children with you. I built a life with you. And I never told you the truth. David's voice was strained. You have been lying to me for 15 years. Our entire marriage is based on a lie. Not a lie, Lisa said desperately. A new truth. Lisa Williams is who I became. She is real. My love for you is real. Our family is real. The only lie is my name and my past. Steve Harvey raised his hand. Hold on. Everyone needs to stop for a moment. Lisa, why are you revealing this now? After 20 years of keeping this secret, why tell your family on national television? Lisa's face crumpled. Because Marcus found me. 3 weeks ago, I got a message on social media. It was from him. He said he has been looking for me for 20 years. He said he knows where I live. He said he knows about David and Nathan and Maya. He said he is coming for me. And I realized that I could not keep hiding anymore. That I needed to tell David and the kids the truth before Marcus shows up and tells them himself. The revelation hung in the air, heavy and terrifying. Steve Harvey immediately gestured to the producers. Stop everything. We need security. We need to take this seriously. Within minutes, chairs were brought onto the stage and the game show format was abandoned completely. Steve sat with the Williams family, or what was left of their understanding of who they were as a family, and what followed was one of the most intense conversations about domestic violence, survival, and the cost of escape that had ever been broadcast. Lisa told her full story from the beginning. She met Marcus Morrison when she was 19. He was 28, successful, confident. She was young and naive and flattered by his attention. They dated for 6 months and he was perfect. Then they got married and everything changed. It started small, Lisa explained. He would criticize what I wore, tell me I was talking too much at parties, get jealous if I spent time with friends. I thought he was just protective. I did not recognize it as control, but it escalated quickly. Within 6 months he was hitting me, slapping me for talking back, punching me for not having dinner ready on time, choking me when he thought I was lying to him. She described the cycle of abuse in painful detail. The violence followed by apologies and tears and promises to change. The brief periods of peace that made her hope it was over. Then the explosion of violence again, worse each time. I tried to tell people, Lisa said. I told my mother. She said marriage requires sacrifice and I needed to try harder. I told his mother. She said I must be doing something to provoke him. I went to the police twice. The first time they told me it was a domestic dispute and I should work it out with my husband. The second time they arrested him, but he was out in 6 hours, and when he got home, he beat me unconscious for calling the police. David was listening with visible horror. Why did you not leave sooner? Because leaving is the most dangerous time for a domestic violence victim, Lisa said. Most women who are killed by their partners are killed when they try to leave. I knew if I left and he found me, he would kill me, so I stayed because staying felt safer than leaving. She described the final beating, the one that put her in the hospital with life-threatening injuries. When I woke up in the hospital, a social worker came to see me. She told me about a program for domestic violence survivors who need to disappear. She said they could give me a new identity and help me start over somewhere he would never find me. And I said yes. Because I knew if I went back to him, he would eventually kill me. Steve Harvey spoke with controlled anger. So this program helped you escape. They gave you a new identity. How does that even work? A woman stepped forward from backstage. She identified herself as Karen Martinez, director of a domestic violence advocacy organization. I have been working with Lisa since she contacted our organization 3 weeks ago after her abuser found her. What she is describing is a real program that exists for survivors in extreme danger. We help them obtain legal name changes, new social security numbers, and we relocate them far from their abusers. It is completely legal, but it requires cutting all ties with everyone from your old life. She continued, Lisa did everything right. She disappeared completely. She built a new life. She followed all the protocols to stay hidden, but abusers are often persistent. And with technology and social media and public records databases, it has become harder to stay hidden forever. Steve turned back to Lisa. So Marcus found you. He sent you a message. What did it say? Lisa pulled out her phone with shaking hands and read the message aloud. Sarah, I know who you are now. I know you are calling yourself Lisa Williams. I know you live in Portland. I know you married David Williams and you have 2 children. I know where you work. I know what car you drive. I have spent 20 years looking for you and I finally found you. You are still my wife. You belong to me and I am coming to get you. The threat was explicit and chilling. David looked like he might be sick. He is threatening you. We need to go to the police. Karen Martinez spoke up. Lisa has already reported this to the police in Portland. They are taking it seriously, but the challenge is that Marcus lives in another state. He has not made an explicit threat of violence, just stated that he is coming to see her. Without a clear threat or without him crossing state lines, there is limited action they can take preemptively. Steve Harvey stood up, visibly angry. So you are telling me that this woman fled domestic violence 20 years ago, built an entire new life, and now her abuser has found her and there is nothing we can do to protect her? There are things we can do, Karen said. Restraining orders. Protective orders, security measures. But ultimately, Lisa is in danger and her family is in danger because Marcus Morrison is an abuser who has spent 2 decades obsessing over the woman who escaped him. Nathan, the 16-year-old son, spoke for the first time. Mom, why did you not tell us? Why did you let us think you were someone you were not? Lisa turned to her children with anguish on her face. Because I wanted to protect you. I wanted you to have a normal childhood without the shadow of my past hanging over you. I thought if I just never talked about it, if I just became Lisa Williams completely, it would be like Sarah Morrison never existed, but I was wrong. The past does not stay buried, and now you are all in danger because of choices I made 20 years ago. Maya, the 14-year-old daughter, asked, Are we safe? Is this man going to hurt us? Steve Harvey knelt down to Maya's level. Sweetheart, we are going to make sure you are safe. Everyone is going to make sure your family is protected. He stood and addressed the camera with fierce intensity. I want everyone watching to understand something. Domestic violence is not just hitting. It is control. It is isolation. It is making someone so afraid that they feel they have no choice but to stay. Lisa stayed for 2 years because leaving meant risking her life. When she finally escaped, she had to give up everything. Her name. Her family, her friends, her entire identity. She had to become someone new just to survive. He continued, and now 20 years later her abuser has found her. He has tracked her down. He has threatened her. And she is standing on this stage telling her story because she realized she could not keep hiding. She had to tell her husband and children the truth before her past destroyed the present she had built. David finally spoke, his voice rough with emotion. I do not know how to process this. My wife of 15 years is not who I thought she was. Her name is different, her past is different, everything I thought I knew about her is wrong. Not everything, Lisa said desperately. My love for you is real, my commitment to our family is real. The woman you fell in love with, Lisa Williams, she is me, she is who I became. The only thing that is different is my name and the fact that I survived something terrible before I met you. David looked at his wife, really looked at her, and his expression softened slightly. You should have told me, when we started dating, when we got engaged, when we got married, you should have trusted me with the truth. I wanted to, Lisa whispered, but I was so afraid you would leave, afraid the information would somehow get back to Marcus, afraid of losing the new life I had built, so I stayed silent, and that silence has cost us all. Steve Harvey sat back down. David, I know you are hurt. I know you feel betrayed, but I need you to understand something. Lisa did not lie to hurt you, she lied to survive. She created Lisa Williams because Sarah Morrison had to die for her to live. That is not betrayal, that is survival. He turned to Lisa. But you also need to understand that David and your children have a right to feel angry and confused and scared. You kept a massive secret from them. You put them in potential danger without their knowledge. That is not fair to them. Karen Martinez added professional context. This is a common dilemma for domestic violence survivors who escape by changing their identity. They want to tell their new partners the truth, but disclosure creates risk. What if the new partner accidentally tells someone? What if information gets back to the abuser? What if the new partner cannot handle the truth and leaves? So survivors often choose silence. They choose to bury their past completely. But that silence creates its own problems. The conversation continued for over 2 hours. They talked about the specifics of Lisa's escape 20 years ago and how the identity change program worked. They discussed the message from Marcus and what it meant legally. They explored whether David could trust Lisa again after 15 years of deception. Nathan and Maya asked questions about their mother's past, trying to understand who she was before she became their mom. Lisa showed them pictures she had kept hidden for 20 years, photos of Sarah Morrison before the abuse started, evidence of the person she used to be. David struggled visibly with conflicting emotions. He was angry about the lies, but he was also protective of his wife and terrified for her safety. I love you, he finally said to Lisa. I love Lisa Williams. I think I would have loved Sarah Morrison too if I had known her. But you did not give me that choice. You took that choice away from me. I know, Lisa said. And I am so sorry, but I need you to understand that when I met you, when I fell in love with you, I was Lisa Williams. Sarah Morrison was dead. She had to be dead for me to survive. So when I married you as Lisa. That was not a lie, that was my truth. Steve Harvey spoke with the authority of someone who had spent hours listening to both sides. Here is what I know. Lisa or Sarah or whoever you are, you survived something most people cannot imagine. You escaped domestic violence by erasing yourself and starting over. That took incredible courage. But you also built a marriage and a family on a foundation of secrecy. And now that secret is out and your family has to deal with the consequences. He turned to David. And David, you have every right to be angry, every right to feel betrayed. But the woman you love is in danger. And right now, she needs you to decide if you are going to stand with her or walk away. David looked at Lisa for a long moment. I am not walking away. You are my wife. You are the mother of my children. We will figure this out. But you have to promise me no more secrets. No more lies, complete honesty from here forward. I promise, Lisa said through tears. Complete honesty, no more hiding. The episode that aired 3 weeks later was preceded by an extensive disclaimer and resources for domestic violence survivors. The producers included information about identity protection programs, restraining orders, and safety planning. They provided the National Domestic Violence Hotline number prominently throughout the broadcast. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Domestic violence organizations reported record numbers of calls from survivors seeking help to escape. Law enforcement agencies across the country contacted the show about Marcus Morrison and the threat he posed. And most significantly, thousands of survivors came forward to share their own stories about escaping abuse and the impossible choice between honesty and safety. Marcus Morrison was arrested 2 weeks after the episode aired. He had driven from his home state to Portland with a gun in his car. Police intercepted him before he could reach Lisa's home. He was charged with stalking, making terroristic threats, and weapons violations. He was denied bail and remained in jail awaiting trial. Lisa, David, and their children entered intensive family therapy to process the revelation and rebuild trust. The police provided additional security for their home. Lisa filed for a restraining order that was immediately granted. And slowly, painfully, the Williams family began the work of integrating Sarah Morrison's past into Lisa Williams' present. 6 months after the Family Feud episode, the family gave an interview about their progress. It has been hard, David said. Learning that my wife has an entire past I knew nothing about, that was difficult, but I have also learned about the incredible strength it took for her to survive what she survived. Sarah Morrison went through hell. Lisa Williams built a good life from nothing. Both of those women are my wife, and I love both of them. Lisa added, I am learning to be honest. About my past. About my fears. About the triggers I have carried for 20 years without acknowledging them. David and the kids deserve to know the whole me, not just the carefully curated version I presented. Nathan spoke about learning his mother's real history. It is weird knowing my mom used to be someone else, but it is also kind of amazing that she survived all that and still became a great mom. She is stronger than I realized. Maya said simply, my mom is a superhero. She fought a bad guy and won. And now she is teaching me to be strong too. 2 years after the revelation, Marcus Morrison was convicted of multiple charges related to stalking and threatening Lisa. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Lisa testified at his trial, the first time she had seen him in 22 years. She stood in the courtroom and told her story of abuse and escape, and the judge told her she was one of the bravest women he had ever seen. 5 years after the Family Feud episode, Lisa wrote a book about her experience titled Two Names, One Life, Surviving Domestic Violence and Starting Over. The book became required reading in domestic violence counseling programs and was credited with helping thousands of survivors understand their options for escape. Nathan graduated high school and chose to study criminal justice with a focus on domestic violence prevention. Maya became an advocate for teenage survivors of dating violence. David remained Lisa's staunchest supporter, telling everyone who would listen that his wife was the strongest person he knew. 10 years after the confession, Lisa testified before Congress about the need for better protection for domestic violence survivors who changed their identities. She argued for stronger laws preventing abusers from accessing public records and social media to track down survivors. Several of her recommendations became federal law. Steve Harvey, in retrospective interviews about impactful Family Feud moments, always mentioned Lisa's confession. That day challenged everything I thought I knew about honesty and secrets. Lisa had been lying to her family for 15 years. She married her husband under a false name. She built her entire life on a deception. But that deception was survival. She lied because telling the truth would have put her in danger. And when her abuser finally found her, when she had to choose between continuing to hide or coming clean, she chose honesty even though it meant risking everything. He continued, what she taught me is that domestic violence does not end when you leave. For many survivors, it is a lifetime of looking over your shoulder, of wondering if your abuser will find you, of making impossible choices about whether to be honest with people you love or to protect them through silence. Lisa chose silence for 20 years. And when she finally spoke, it was because staying silent was more dangerous than telling the truth. If you have been moved by this story of domestic violence survival, identity reinvention, and the impossible choice between honesty and safety, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share this with someone who needs to understand what domestic violence survivors face when they escape. Share this with someone who is judging a survivor for lying about their past. Remember that Lisa Williams spent 20 years living under a false identity because revealing the truth would have put her in danger. She met David, fell in love, got married, had children, all while hiding who she really was. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to be honest. But honesty meant risk and risk meant potential death. So she chose silence. She chose to bury Sarah Morrison and become Lisa Williams completely. But the past never stays buried. Marcus Morrison spent 20 years looking for the wife who escaped him. And when he finally found her, when he threatened her and her family, Lisa had to make another impossible choice. Continue hiding and risk her family being blindsided when her past caught up with them, or confess everything publicly and deal with the consequences of 20 years of deception. She chose honesty. She stood on Family Feud and told her husband and children that she was not who they thought she was. That she had fled domestic violence, that she had changed her name and identity, that everything they knew about her past was carefully constructed fiction designed to protect them all. David was devastated. He felt betrayed. His wife had lied to him for 15 years, but he also understood that the lie was survival, that Lisa had not deceived him to hurt him but to stay alive, that Sarah Morrison had to disappear for Lisa Williams to exist. They are still together 10 years later. The marriage survived the revelation, but it required work, therapy, complete transparency going forward. Learning to trust someone who had hidden something so fundamental for so long. Nathan and Maya are adults now. They understand their mother's choices in ways they could not at 14 and 16. They are proud of her survival, proud of her courage, proud that she finally told the truth even when it terrified her. Marcus Morrison is in prison. He will be there for many more years. Lisa is safe. Her family is safe, and she no longer has to live in hiding. That is the lesson, not that lying is acceptable, not that deception is justified, but that survival sometimes requires measures that look like betrayal from the outside but are actually self-preservation. Lisa lied to survive, and when her abuser found her, she told the truth to protect her family. Both choices took courage. Both choices came with consequences, but both choices kept her alive. That is what domestic violence survival looks like. Not a clean escape, not a simple story, but a complicated, messy, ongoing struggle to stay alive and build a life while carrying the weight of trauma and the fear of being found. If you are in a domestic violence situation, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. If you need to escape, there are programs that can help you disappear safely. If you have escaped and are living under a new identity, you are not alone. Your choices were survival. Your lies were necessary. And when you are ready to tell the truth, when you are safe enough to be honest, there are people who will understand.